Have you ever lost something so small that its absence rearranges the air in a room? A key, a page, a name, and for a moment the world feels slightly unfinished, as if a hinge has gone soft? We begin here, at that hollow of attention, with hands empty and breathing tuned to the tide, because it is easier to learn a place when the lungs remember the sea. We sit together at the water's edge, not on any precise map, but at a harbor remembered by shape and smell. Nets kept quiet long before dawn, the light kept to muted blues and gray. The air takes a slow, cool hold of us. Salt rides the inhale and settles like a thought on the tongue. Beneath our words a low, sustained hum presses like an undersea chord, felt more than heard, a thread for what follows. Distant gulls fold into the wash, thin as memory. A barely audible bell rings, patient and slow, every 40 to 60 seconds to mark our breathing and keep the pace true. We will not hurry. The opening lines are invitations rather than reports. Imagine the hush of nets on a jetty, the soft rope knots in a fisher's palm, a bell in the far distance that marks long, patient breaths. Let us match our breathing to that bell, to the long exhale of the ocean. Breathe in as the tide draws near, breathe out as it pulls away. We do this together now. Inhale with the tide, exhale with the tide. This small, mechanical kindness is our anchor. It brings the body back to the simple presence of the shoreline. Fog softens the edges of things. The harbor becomes a suggestion rather than a precise scene, a memory with rounded corners. Our sentences will follow that fog, long, slow, measured, carrying the weight of salt and time instead of bright, sharp headlines. In this place the world is described by texture. The corroded gleam of an old anchor head, the hollow plank beneath a cautious foot, the rope that smells faintly of seaweed. Such details are small, but they are how we enter the slow interior of a life. One might suppose the harbor is a single steady thing, but memory says otherwise. It is stitched, layered by uses and private ceremonies. There are mornings when the quay smells of smoked fish and mornings when it smells of rain on iron. There is always the low human murmur of life in transit. We will name no island, no latitude. Names make the tale a map, and maps demand measurement. Instead, we keep to softer work, naming sensations, the harbor's hush, the particular tilt of its tides, the small private liturgies that make a place habitable. Listen to the rhythm when people live by water. Feet on blunt cobbles, a kettle's small sigh, timber settling into itself. These are the practical noises of affection and endurance. They are the sounds of breakfasts and mending and continual repair. They teach us how a community arranges itself against weather and tide. There is civility in this. We fold our activities into the predictable patterns of the sea so that unpredictability can be met with gentleness. And in that gentleness, we find the forms of everyday courage. In the first minutes, we practice restrained curiosity. We look at edges rather than centers, at worn thresholds, and the way salt has eaten hinges. Observation here is tactile. We press a palm to a weathered stone and feel the cool reminiscence of many mornings. We trace a faint groove where a door once closed and find the memory of careful hands. Each small attention is permission to enter the deeper, quieter parts of the story, and it teaches the listener to value the small and the ordinary as careful companions. The narrator's voice is measured and close, an intimate scholar at the edge of recall, inviting us to let the coastline narrow our thoughts and to be gentle with our attention. This is not a lecture. It is a shared practice of looking and slowing, a companionable lowering of expectation that allows wonder to be simple and unhurried. There will be no abrupt dramatic gesture in this opening descent, only the steady lowering of tempo. Syllables lengthen, consonants soften, and the spaces between phrases widen so the listener's mind can rest. Our modest and generous task is to bring you near a place half remembered, to let your breathing align with the long, patient movements of tide and time, and to keep the voice companionable so thought may dim into sleep. Hold the harbor lightly as we begin. We take a lamp to a quiet desk now, and in its pool of waxed light we place the kinds of things that make stories plausible. A worn map, a folded ledger, a scrap of cloth with old salt stains. This is scholarly work in the soft sense. Not the parade of dates and authority, but the patient gathering of small, human traces and the asking of gentle questions. Imagine paper under a fingertip, the grain, the little fray at the corner, the faint imprint of an old thumb. We turn pages slowly, and the sound of a soft page turn marks the rhythm of our inquiry. Here, evidence is not a verdict, it is an invitation. We will meet layers in the ground like sewn cloth, ledger fragments that smell faintly of lamp smoke, folk memory that arrives as a half-remembered refrain, and sonar blips that feel like distant heartbeats. Each kind of clue has its own tenderness. Together they make a cautious architecture of knowing. One might suppose that scientific terms would harden this place, but we prefer a gentle tone. When we speak of strata, we mean the Earth's own slow handwriting. When we say context, we mean the company a shard keeps, where it was found, who brushed soil from it, who noticed a line where a quay once ended. These are technicalities delivered as whispered notes, to be felt rather than catalogued. We will practice a particular kind of attention, slow, comparative, and deferential. Consider two examples, a pot rim found in silt and a lullaby half remembered by an elder. They are different sorts of evidence, yet both point to a household by the shore. The pottery tells us craft and habit. The lullaby tells us feeling and naming. Together they give shape to lives otherwise invisible to grand histories. There will be no long lists of dates, no insistence on certainty. Instead, we favor layered description, a map described as a patchwork of stains and folds, a ledger as a book with margin notes that hint at what people meant to do rather than what the state decreed. Our scholarly habit is to read the margins and to listen for the hesitations. This method asks us to sit with ambiguity and to accept that the past often offers multiple, equally modest answers. In practice, this means the following gentle rules. First, look where attention is thin, the thresholds, the broken thresholds, the places where saws have smooth stones. Second, favor the human scale, the handspun rope, the child's toy carved from a scrap of driftwood. Third, allow the story to be provisional, hypothesize loosely, and carry caveats like pocketed stones. These rules keep us humble and keep wonder alive. Our tools are small and precise. Trowels that make soft arcs in the sand, magnifiers that hold a bead up to the light, recordings of songs played back and transcribed by ear. We treat each tool as a companion rather than an instrument of verdict. The trowel helps us find a post hole. The magnifier makes the glaze on a shard sing, and the recording keeps a voice we can play when other people are asleep. Between these methods, the story grows, not by conquest, but by patient companionship. It is a curious fact that the kinds of evidence we prize are the ones that refuse to be loud. Pottery is silent. Maps are shy. Folk story prefers repetition over proclamation. Yet in their silence, they offer something larger, a human thread that ties a particular family, household, or quay to a shape of living. We follow such threads because they are where lives press against time. At moments, geological hints will nudge us, a distinct layer of sand, a different compaction in the silt, and we will listen to those nudges with careful, scholar-like restraint. We will not leap to dramatic conclusions. Rather, we will set hypotheses beside one another like small stones and see how they fit the broader surface. In that way, we allow both the scientific and the storytelling modes to be companions. Between denser passages, we will pause for music, a 10 to 15-second breath of sound, a soft harmonic pad, space for the mind to empty and the body to return to the inhalation that marks our steady harbor breathing. These musical breaths are not interruptions. They are the same kind of patient care we apply to dusty charts and fragile memories. We will move slowly through the evidence because slowness is a form of respect. Respect for the people who lived by these keys. Respect for the capacity of the earth to hold and hide. Respect for the fragile ways in which human sorrow becomes song. The scholar's lamp is small but steady. It illuminates what touches the hand and lets the rest remain gentle and indistinct. Finally, we offer a promise. This framing is an agreement between us. We will be careful with conjecture, tender with names we cannot verify, and generous in our willingness to pause and listen. When we reopen the map, it will be with the same quiet curiosity as a hand that brushes dust from an old book. We learn the harbor by the small, habitual things it asks of bodies, the slow giving of a rope underhand, the way a plank answers to weight, the coolness of flagstones beneath bare feet when morning is still. There is a grammar to such places. One learns it by repetition and by noticing the slight changes that come to feel like signals rather than surprises. In first light, the quay becomes a set of soft outlines and predictable motions. A man mending a net, a woman threading shells, a child's palm discovering a smooth pebble and turning it over as if reading a private letter. Imagine a morning in detail, oil lamps guttering, a kettle's small sigh, fishermen walking with a particular balance learned over seasons. Their hands know where a knot will hold and where it will slip. We feel that cadence in our own breath when we stand beside them. Inhale with the reach of a throw, exhale with the settling of line. There are market mornings when the quay feels like a slow tide of bodies, baskets balanced, voices kept low so as not to startle delicate trade. A woman sells smoked fish wrapped in cloth. A child trades a carved toy for a slice of bread. A potter places a new bowl beside an older one whose glaze bears the faint ghost of 100 breakfasts. We take delight in small crafts. Rope twisted by hand until it becomes obedient, nets mended with ceremonial patience, a line of shells threaded by a slow finger that measures between beads. These rituals are not decorative but practical prayers. They prepare people for weather and for one another. A household arranges its day by light. Bread at low morning, nets checked midday, soups warmed at dusk. Routine becomes scaffolding for memory and comfort. One might suppose attention to ordinary things is mere sentiment. It is not. The ordinary is where resilience hides. Habits, mending, trading, the folding of salted fish, form the practical skeleton of social life. When disaster comes, it is these practices that either yield or adapt to hold people through change. Consider how a single taut knot may keep a skiff from drifting. The small mastery of a hand multiplies into safety for many. Children are instructive here. They learn by imitation and by narrow curricula of necessity. A child learns to balance a basket before she reads a ledger. She knows a tide's weight and how her foot finds a sill. Watch a child tie a knot, and you will see the community's future: imitation, correction, pride. These are soft institutions, made of touch and repetition rather than law, and they teach patience better than any decree. Tenderness is distributed in small acts. A neighbor brings extra bread for a newborn. An elderly woman is helped into a warm chair. A shared bench gains the patina of many elbows. Such tendernesses are the social adhesive of the harbor. They are how dignity is kept without formal banks. We notice who arrives late and who leaves early. We learn the shape of family by who is absent and who carries parcels. Sound is seam, the low murmur of conversation, the metallic clink of a scale, the distant creak of a mast. These noises teach expectation and allow vigilance to soften into trust. They are not background. They are the community's grammar. Listen for the hush after an apology, the small laugh that follows a mended net. These are the sound threads of belonging. We find small objects that hold private stories: a wooden peg notched by teeth, a bowl with a faint star scrape on its rim, a single shoe left under a bench because someone stepped lightly to learn an errand. In each object is a compressed biography of domestic time and gestures repeated until they become fluent. They are modest things, but they anchor the human scale to the quay's geography. Private liturgies bind people: a dusk bell to call night fishers, a whispered prayer into a hand before a storm, the habit of placing a warm cloth on a newborn's head. These rituals convert hunger, cold, fear into manageable, human-scale events. They are mnemonic devices too. A bell remembers those who are late, and a recipe remembers the seasons. We must not romanticize. Nets tear, seasons fail, people quarrel over fishing rights. Yet hardship is lived in the same vocabulary as joy, mending and sharing and teaching. The language of the quay is therefore an economy of small cares, and it is by such cares that communities endure. Place your feet on the stone in imagination. Feel the coolness that holds like a hand. We inhale with the shared cadence of the community and let our bodies register the slow, everyday work that keeps a harbor inhabited. By attending to these practices, we recover manners rather than monuments, the patient routines that make continuity possible. There is always a small song in the distance, a lullaby half-hummed as someone stitches a net or as a child is tucked beneath a blanket. And that song keeps private time with the tide. We simply call it keeping. And in that keeping, the harbor learns to hold people through a long series of ordinary mornings. The gentle record of the earth, sediment, and stone. Beneath our feet, the ground keeps its own slow ledger. And if we learn to read its economy, we find a patient memory that neither shouts nor forgets. The earth accumulates days like pages, a thin, pale layer for a quiet summer, a thicker, darker band where the sea once leaned and left its handwriting. Place a fingertip upon sifted sand, and you feel not only texture, but a chronology that suggests what came before and what settled after. When we speak of strata, let us say it as a soft thing. Strata are the earth's slow handwriting, each layer a line of a book that has been closed and left for another hand to open. Context is a household word here. The company a shard keeps. Lumen, if we whisper it, gestures at small spaces that catch light in an inner chamber. These technical terms are not armor for the story, but gentle lenses through which quiet evidence becomes legible. Imagine the careful excavation, a trowel making a measured arc, soil brushed away in thin ribbons, a small clink that makes the heart lift because it is the sound of something being remembered. We watch the hand whose fingertip follows a faint edge and lifts a shard from the dark. The shard is cold. Its glaze a memory of heat and of hands that shaped it. Fingers brush the rim as if reading Braille. There are discoveries that sing modestly. A pot rim with a dribble of glaze that tells of a maker's thumb. A bead whose hole has worn like a well. Each is a private archive. A half-buried column might be found tilted as if someone had put a pillow under it and walked away. A scatter of post holes may suggest a lost room's outline. A line of small stones may whisper of a garden path now under silt. We give names to these small things: rim, peg, bead, post. The names are simple but affectionate. Absence is a kind of residue too. An empty doorway that yields no lintel, a sudden gap where a quay ought to be, a garden that leaves only a paler stain in the earth. Such negative evidence is as eloquent as any recovered pot. The missing tells us about movement and loss. Perhaps a wall washed away, perhaps a threshold left unrepaired. In the archaeological lexicon, absence is context as well. It frames what remains by the silhouette it leaves. We practice slow hypotheses. A thick bed of sand might be read as a single event, a wave or a wash. or as the cumulative patience of many small tides. To prefer one reading over another is to choose a single voice among many. Thus, we habitually set multiple small stones of possibility beside one another and see whether they fit together into a plausible lay of life. Touch remains central. A conservator's gloved hand lifts a tiny bead into light and notes its micro-scratches. An archaeologist moistens a flake of pottery to reveal a pigment hidden for centuries. The eye discerns a hairline in size design that only responds to close, patient gaze. These acts are tenderness as much as technique, and they instruct the listener in humility. Knowledge can be coaxed but not forced. Sometimes the ground yields more than objects. Impressions of reed matting, faint carbon stains of hearths, the subtle compacting where feet beat the same path for generations. Such traces are the vocabulary of everyday life. We read the domestic by the traces of use rather than by grand architecture. A scattering of shell fragments around a hearth says more about diets than any document. A line of tiny post holes may imply a protective fence or a child's play place. There are also spaces that invite imagination without insisting on certainty. A dark rectangle in the sediment might be a buried doorway or simply the shadow of an ancient trench. A rounded mound might be an old midden or a natural hummock. We keep these possibilities in polite company, neither claiming nor discarding them, but letting them sit like faint guests in the room of the past. Language matters. We slow the syllables when we say technical names so they feel like caresses rather than proclamations. Repeat after me silently as we listen. Strata, slow lines. Context, company kept. Lumen, small light. These repeated, softened terms help the mind accept concepts without sharpening the pulse. There is a quiet drama in conservation. A shard is consolidated with gentle adhesive. A fragile bead is placed into supportive foam. A wooden peg is slowly desalinized to prevent collapse. These are laboratory moments that feel more like acts of care than instruments of triumph. When a fragment is cataloged, it is given a small prose identity and then returned to the slow business of being a trace. In the end, the Earth's record is patient testimony. It speaks in layers and absences, in the tremble of a shard, and in the hush of a missing stare. We read it not to conquer, but to be companioned by it, to let the sediment teach us its modest chronology, and to accept that much will remain soft with uncertainty. There is a moment in every quiet investigation when the air seems to cool around a single, darker line. We feel it first with the palm, pressed flat against a band of sand that is thicker, denser, faintly different in its compacted hush. The ground does not speak loudly, but it alters its tone, and in that alteration we sense the possibility of a story larger than habit. We kneel beside the exposed profile and trace the boundary with careful fingers. Above, the usual patient layering. Below, the familiar silt of seasons, and between them, a sudden, thickened deposit, coarse with shell and splintered reed, angled as though laid down in haste. It is not the kind of line that forms by daily tide. It has the quiet authority of interruption. A single, low bell sounds in our inner hearing when we name it, a wave mark. Not a wave in the ordinary sense, not the daily breathing of the sea, but a concentrated movement, a body of water that arrived with purpose and departed leaving rearrangement behind. We say this softly, as one might say the name of a guest who has long since left the room. There are other hints that gather around the band like respectful companions. A driftwood line discovered several meters inland, the timber angled oddly against the expected grain of prevailing wind. A scatter of shells where no kitchen once stood. An old map margin, browned and folded, annotated in a single careful hand with one word, higher. The ink has bled faintly into the paper fibers, as if the sea wished to claim even that caution. There is a moment in every quiet investigation when the air seems to cool around a single, darker line. We feel it first with the palm, pressed flat against a band of sand that is thicker, denser, faintly different in its compacted hush. The ground does not speak loudly, but it alters its tone, and in that alteration we sense the possibility of a story larger than habit. We kneel beside the exposed profile and trace the boundary with careful fingers. Above, the usual patient layering. Below, the familiar silt of seasons, and between them, a sudden, thickened deposit, coarse with shell and splintered reed, angled as though laid down in haste. It is not the kind of line that forms by daily tide. It has the quiet authority of interruption. A single, low bell sounds in our inner hearing when we name it, a wave mark. Not a wave in the ordinary sense, not the daily breathing of the sea, but a concentrated movement, a body of water that arrived with purpose and departed leaving rearrangement behind. We say this softly, as one might say the name of a guest who has long since left the room. There are other hints that gather around the band like respectful companions. A driftwood line discovered several meters inland, the timber angled oddly against the expected grain of prevailing wind. A scatter of shells where no kitchen once stood. An old map margin, browned and folded, annotated in a single careful hand with one word, higher. The ink has bled faintly into the paper fibers, as if the sea wished to claim even that caution. We resist drama. Instead, we let the evidence sit with us. The thickness of the deposit suggests weight. The angle of debris implies direction. The absence of certain small objects above the layer hints at disruption. None of these alone commands certainty. Together, however, they lean in a shared direction. One might suppose such a finding would quicken the pulse. We choose the opposite. We slow our breathing and widen our attention. Inhale, hold, exhale, as if matching the sea's own tempo. In this calm we test gentle hypotheses. Perhaps a rare convergence of tides amplified an ordinary swell. Perhaps a distant tremor displaced water along the coast. Perhaps a storm track once followed a path no longer common. Each possibility is laid beside the others like smooth stones. And yet the line remains, darker, thicker, abrupt. When we run a fingertip along its edge, we feel the slight coarseness of hurried deposition. Fragments of reed lie cross-grained. A shard is embedded at an angle inconsistent with gradual settling. The earth is not accusatory, but it is consistent. We imagine the shoreline before and after. Before, modest prosperity, routines, nets drying in orderly rows. After, subtle rearrangement. A quay shortened, a doorway silted, a garden line blurred. Not annihilation, not spectacle, but alteration. The kind that requires people to lift and move, to rename, to adapt. The map with its marginal higher becomes an intimate witness. We picture the hand that wrote it, perhaps a harbor master, perhaps a careful daughter, noting the new contour with restrained ink. There is humility in that single word. It acknowledges change without embellishment. We must also consider the alternative readings, for scholarship is a discipline of patience. Could the thickened layer represent decades of incremental flooding rather than one great arrival? Might the inland driftwood have been carried by human hands, repurposed and misplaced? Could the map's annotation refer to a different concern altogether? We hold these questions close, not to undermine the finding, but to keep it honest. Still, the convergence is persuasive in its quiet way. Sediment signature, anomalous debris, cartographic caution, they harmonize like low notes in a chord. We do not announce a catastrophe, we suggest an event, a moment when the sea leaned further inland than memory had prepared for. Place your hand again upon the imagined band of sand. Feel its coolness, the slight compression beneath your palm. There is awe here, but it is soft awe, a recognition of human smallness beside moving water. We sense how vulnerable a harbor can be, how easily routines can be unsettled by a single, concentrated breath of the ocean. And yet we do not leave the people in peril. We remain with the evidence, with the slow, respectful naming of what the ground implies. A great wave, perhaps a reshaping surge, a day when the shoreline forgot its usual boundary and then remembered it differently. The bell in our inner hearing sounds once more, low, patient, without alarm. We bow slightly to the possibility and let the hypothesis rest between us like a stone warmed by hand. If the earth keeps memory in layers, people keep it in breath. We move now from sediment to song, from the cool compression of sand to the warm cadence of a voice by the hearth. There is a different archive here, one that lives in repetition and soft alteration, in the way a phrase bends slightly from one generation to the next. Imagine the room, low beams darkened by smoke, a pot suspended above coals, the gentle fragrance of brined fish and fresh bread. An elder sits near the warmth and begins not with explanation, but with melody. The melody is simple, almost spare, and it carries a line about water that rose without anger and fell without farewell. They sang of a watchman on the hill. They sang of a bell that rang too long. They sang of children carried upward in shawls while the sea rearranged its furniture below. The details shift from household to household, yet the core remains, water that changed its mind about the shore. We listen closely, not for spectacle, but for pattern. In one version, the sea is described as silver and patient. In another, it is called heavy and blue-green, as if the singer still sees its pressure in the mind's eye. A final line sometimes speaks of higher ground, echoing that small cartographic note we traced with our finger. Such echoes are not proof, but they are companionship. It is a curious fact that oral tradition prefers metaphor to measurement. No one counts the cubits of inundation. Instead, they speak of bread left cooling on a sill, of nets lifted from hooks before their time, of a dog that would not be quiet. These domestic markers carry emotional weight. They translate event into meaning. We hear the refrain return in different keys. They sang, we sing, we remember. The repetition itself becomes a structure, like the rhythm of tide against quay. In one hearthside telling, the wave is a warning. In another, it is a test. In yet another, it is a visitation that teaches humility. The sea becomes character without ever becoming villain. Let us attend to how sorrow is softened by ritual. A lullaby hums the line of rising water into a cradle song. The vowels lengthen, the consonants blur. The elder might whisper, lowering the voice as if tucking the event beneath a blanket. In that softening, we witness transformation. Event into story, story into comfort. There are small variants that matter. In one village, the watchman falls asleep. In another, he remains awake but cannot see far enough. In a third, a child on a terrace notices the change before any adult does. These differences tell us less about geology and more about values, vigilance, innocence, responsibility. Scholars of memory would say that repetition consolidates, that what is sung often becomes truer in feeling if not in detail. We need not be clinical about it. We simply observe that the line about higher ground persists, and that the melody dips at that moment as if bowing to an invisible contour. Breath carries contour, contour carries recollection. The hearth glows, someone adjusts the pot, a log shifts with a small sigh. The elder's voice wavers, but does not break. Children lean against knees, a shawl is drawn tighter. Outside, the tide makes its ordinary sound as if nothing unusual has ever occurred. And yet within the room the wave is present, distilled into song. We might ask, why sing of loss at all? Because to sing is to share weight. Because melody distributes memory across many throats, so no single voice must bear it alone. In this way, the community institutionalizes feeling without decree. The song becomes a small shrine that requires no stone. They sang, and in singing they kept. We sing, and in singing we carry. We remember, and in remembering we soften. The pattern itself is consolation. It assures us that even altered shores can be held in human cadence. Let your breathing follow the lullaby now. Inhale on the first phrase. Exhale on the second. Allow the vowels to lengthen in your mind as if the air itself were being cradled. The hearth warmth and the sea cool meet gently in the chest. They sang, we sing, we remember. There is a morning when the air tastes faintly different, not sharper, not louder, simply weighted, as though the horizon has drawn a deeper breath than usual. We do not begin with thunder. We begin with a noticing. A fisherman pauses mid-knot because the rope hums with a tension he does not recognize. A woman at the well tilts her head at a rhythm that seems fractionally delayed. The tide has come in before, it has gone out before. But this time the water stands a little higher against the quay, as if testing a new boundary with polite persistence. Boats float with a subtle lift, moorings strain with a low, continuous murmur rather than a sudden snap. The sound is not percussion, it is a sustained tone in the low register, a long vowel held by the sea. We follow the sequence of small choices. A basket is lifted from a lower step and carried to a terrace. A child is called in from the shallows. Nets are unhooked and draped higher along a beam. No one runs. They adjust. The community's grammar of habit begins to conjugate itself differently. The water does not roar. It leans. It presses. It rearranges the furniture of the shore with a deliberation that feels almost contemplative. Planks float where they once rested. A cart shifts and is steadied. A door that is always closed neatly now meets resistance from a thin seam of silt. Imagine the sensation beneath bare feet. The flagstones cool more quickly than expected. A thin wash crosses them and retreats, leaving a skin of fine sand that grits softly under heel. The smell of wet timber rises, compressed salt and old tar awakened at once. Breath shortens for a moment, then lengthens again as people remember to breathe together. One might suppose alarm would claim the hour. Instead, there is concentration. A man ties a secondary knot with deliberate care. A woman gathers ledger pages from a low shelf and places them in a higher niche. An elder takes a bell from its hook and rings it not in panic, but in summoning. The bell's tone is long and low, instructive rather than frantic. The sea continues its quiet insistence. It reaches further along the market row. It touches the base of a column that has never known such intimacy. It leaves behind a drift of reed and shell where bread was cooling. This is not spectacle. It is alteration unfolding in increments. We see people move in arcs rather than lines. Toward higher terraces, toward stone steps, toward the memory of safe ground named in lullabies. A child clutches a wooden peg from a toy boat. A dog is lifted by its collar. A shawl is wrapped tighter against a chill that has little to do with wind. The harbor's sounds change key. The familiar murmur of trade dissolves into measured instruction. The low swell becomes a continuous presence that underwrites every gesture. There is no single crashing moment. There is a threshold crossed by degrees until everyone understands that the shore is not where it was. And then, as all movements must, the sea begins to reconsider. The pressure eases, the water lingers. It withdraws with the same sustained tone with which it arrived. What remains is a subtle new topography, silt where there was stone, a shortened quay, a garden line blurred into anonymity. We do not linger on loss, we linger on response. A hand checks the safety of a neighbor. A kettle is set again upon a steadied hearth. A wet ledger is laid open to dry in the gentlest available sun. People count quietly, not possessions, but persons. Place your breath inside this measured unfolding. Inhale as the water leans. Exhale as it releases. Feel the body register motion without violence. We witness change spoken softly, a day when the shore altered its agreement with those who lived beside it. At the close of the day, there is a long pause. Not silence, but recalibration. The bell is rung once more, lower now, acknowledging what has shifted and what remains. The community stands upon higher ground that feels at once familiar and newly significant. The sea has rearranged its furniture. The harbor has answered with patience. And we, listening across time, hold both motions in a single, steady breath. There is a moment in history when a story turns from philosophy into machinery, when wonder grows gears. We have walked through the salt-washed echoes of Thales of Miletus and drifted beside the patient geometry of Pythagoras. We have listened to the careful catalogues of Hipparchus, who mapped the sky as if pinning stars to parchment. Now we descend to something stranger. Not a scroll, not a theory, but metal. Recovered from a Roman-era shipwreck near the Greek island of Antikythera, encrusted in limestone and silence, lay fragments of corroded bronze. At first glance, they were unremarkable, broken teeth of something once intricate. But those teeth belonged to thought itself. This object is now known as the Antikythera mechanism. It does not look like much when separated from its casing, a cluster of gears, dials, inscriptions. But inside that corrosion was a revelation, an ancient computer. Not metaphorically, mechanically. It predicted eclipses. It tracked the movements of the sun and moon. It encoded cycles, seros, metonic, rhythms known to astronomers but here rendered in turning bronze. 2,000 years ago, someone built a device that could calculate the heavens. This was not guesswork, not prayer, not omen reading. It was engineering. The gears mesh in precise ratios. Some are pin and slot mechanisms to simulate the moon's irregular orbit. One dial marks eclipse cycles with startling accuracy. The inscriptions instruct the user how to read the sky through brass. Imagine holding it. A wooden box, perhaps the size of a thick book. You turn a crank. The gears hum softly. On the front dial, the sun moves across the zodiac. On another, the moon shifts, waxing and waning through a small black and white sphere. The cosmos becomes tactile. This machine changes the emotional temperature of our story. Before this, we might believe Greek astronomy was poetic speculation elevated by geometry. But this device proves something sharper. They could translate celestial motion into mechanism. They could model reality. And that is the first quiet tremor of modern science. It is tempting to romanticize it, to call it a relic of lost supercivilization. But restraint matters. The mechanism did not appear from nowhere. It is the flowering of centuries of mathematical accumulation. The legacy of Eudoxus of Cnidus, who imagined nested spheres to explain planetary motion. The refinements of Apollonius of Perga, who studied epicycles and conic sections. The systematic observations of Hipparchus, who quantified the sky. The mechanism is not magic. It is continuity cast in bronze. And yet, something unsettling lingers. Why did this level of mechanical sophistication not accelerate immediately into an industrial revolution? Why does the trail of complex gearing grow thin for over a millennium? The answer is not simple. Knowledge moves unevenly. It clusters, flourishes, scatters. The Roman world prized engineering, aqueducts, roads, concrete, but abstract mechanical computation did not dominate its priorities. It is tempting to romanticize it, to call it a relic of lost supercivilization. But restraint matters. The mechanism did not appear from nowhere. It is the flowering of centuries of mathematical accumulation. The legacy of Eudoxus of Cnidus, who imagined nested spheres to explain planetary motion. The refinements of Apollonius of Perga, who studied epicycles and conic sections. The systematic observations of Hipparchus, who quantified the sky. The mechanism is not magic. It is continuity cast in bronze. And yet, something unsettling lingers. Why did this level of mechanical sophistication not accelerate immediately into an industrial revolution? Why does the trail of complex gearing grow thin for over a millennium? The answer is not simple. Knowledge moves unevenly. It clusters, flourishes, scatters. The Roman world prized engineering, aqueducts, roads, concrete, but abstract mechanical computation did not dominate its priorities. Then empires fractured, libraries burned, trade networks shrank. The machine did not fail. The world did. Still, the idea survived, translated, preserved, expanded in the scholarly centers of the Islamic Golden Age, then reintroduced into medieval Europe. When mechanical clocks bloom in the 14th century, they echo faintly with Antikythera's whisper. Tick, turn, predict. The desire to bind time and motion into gears never truly vanished. Now sit with this quietly. On the floor of the Mediterranean, beneath centuries of water pressure and drifting silt, lay proof that human beings had already learned to encode the sky into mathematics and motion. The stars were not untouchable. They were computable, and that realization changes how we breathe. The ancient Greeks did not simply look up and wonder. They built the heavens into their hands. In our next descent, we will ask a sharper question. If the cosmos can be measured, can it also be centered? And what happens when someone dares to move the earth? There is a difference between measuring the sky and rearranging it. By the time we reach this moment, Greek astronomy is no longer fragile. It has catalogs. It has geometry. It has bronze gears turning with calculated patience. But it still carries an assumption so heavy it feels invisible. The earth does not move. Look around you now, even in imagination. The ground feels steady. The horizon does not tilt. The air does not rush past at unimaginable speeds. Stability is intuitive. Motion is dramatic. So the cosmos was built accordingly. In the 2nd century CE, Claudius Ptolemy assembled centuries of observation into a monumental work, the Almagest. In it, the earth sits at the center, immobile, dignified, unquestioned. Around it circle the moon, Mercury, Venus, the sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and finally the sphere of fixed stars. But the planets misbehave. They loop backward against the stars. They slow, reverse, resume. This motion, retrograde motion, cannot be explained by simple circles around Earth. So the geometry grows intricate. Epicycles upon epicycles. Circles riding circles. A deferent carrying a smaller wheel that carries the planet itself. It works. That is the unsettling part. Ptolemy's system predicts planetary positions with impressive accuracy. It becomes the dominant cosmological model for over 1,400 years, adopted, refined, preserved across cultures. It is not stupidity. It is precision built upon a single unquestioned premise. And yet, there had been a whisper before Ptolemy. In the 3rd century BCE, Aristarchus of Samos suggested something audacious. What if the sun is at the center? What if Earth moves? It was a quiet revolution, and it failed to take hold. Why? Because the mathematics to support it was not yet powerful enough. Because no stellar parallax was observed with the naked eye. Because the idea violated common sense and philosophical commitments about Earth's heaviness and natural place. And because Ptolemy's model worked. Here is the uncomfortable truth. A theory does not survive because it is emotionally satisfying. It survives because it predicts. The geocentric model predicted, so it endured. But consider what was required to even imagine heliocentrism. To say Earth moves is to deny the evidence of your senses. To say Earth spins is to claim we are perpetually falling sideways through space. To say Earth orbits is to suggest we are not central, not physically, perhaps not metaphysically. That is not a small shift. It is existential. If we move, then the heavens are not rotating around us in tribute. We are participants, not spectators. the sky becomes indifferent, and that can feel destabilizing. Still, the seed was planted. Centuries later, in Renaissance Europe, the heliocentric model would return, sharpened by mathematics, defended with observation, challenged by authority. But it did not appear from nothing. Its earliest articulation belongs to Aristarchus, a single mind willing to let the earth drift. Let us linger in that moment. Imagine standing on the shore of Samos, watching the sun sink into the horizon. The sea glows copper. The air cools. You feel perfectly still. And yet, according to Aristarchus, you are rotating at over 1,600 kilometers per hour at the equator. The sea does not scream. The air does not tear from your lungs. You feel nothing. Reality is not obligated to feel true. This is the deeper lesson emerging from Greek astronomy. Observation matters. Mathematics matters. But imagination matters too. The courage to question the obvious is the hinge of progress. Ptolemy built a cathedral of circles around Earth. Aristarchus loosened a single stone at its foundation. One model dominated for centuries. The other waited. In the quiet patience of ideas, time is not an enemy. The Earth would move again, not physically, but conceptually. And when it did, the universe would expand beyond anything the ancients imagined. For now, we rest in this tension. A sky precisely calculated, a world confidently centered, and a fragile hypothesis that everything we stand on is in motion. In the next section, we will widen the lens, beyond Greece, beyond Rome, and follow how this knowledge traveled, transformed, and survived the fractures of empire. Because ideas, like planets, sometimes disappear behind the sun, only to return. Empires fall loudly. Knowledge survives quietly. When the political structure of Rome fractured in the 5th century, it is tempting to imagine the lights of learning dimming all at once. Roads decayed, cities thinned, administrative cohesion dissolved. But ideas are less obedient to collapse than stone. The astronomical works of Claudius Ptolemy did not vanish with imperial authority. His Almagest, dense, geometric, exacting, traveled east and south, translated into Syriac and Arabic, studied with disciplined care. In the 8th and 9th centuries, under the Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad, a remarkable intellectual movement took shape. At the center of it stood the House of Wisdom, not a single building in the modern sense, but a network of scholars, translators, mathematicians, astronomers. Greek works were not merely preserved. They were interrogated. Figures like Al-Khwarizmi expanded algebra. Astronomers refined planetary tables. Observatories rose in cities across the Islamic world, from Baghdad to Damascus to Samarkand. And something subtle happened. Ptolemy's geocentric system remained foundational, but it was not treated as sacred. Scholars noticed inconsistencies. They questioned the equant point, a mathematical device Ptolemy used to preserve uniform circular motion while matching observations. Critique did not mean rejection. It meant refinement. Later, in the 13th century, at the observatory in Moraga, astronomers such as Nasir al-Din al-Tusi developed new geometric models. The Tusi couple, a clever mathematical construction, generated linear motion from two circular motions. It was an elegant correction. Centuries afterward, this very device would quietly appear in the work of a Polish canon who would once again move the earth. But we are not there yet. For now, notice the pattern. Greek observation, Roman transmission, Islamic refinement, European revival. This is not a straight line of progress. It is a relay. Knowledge passes hands. Each culture adds weight, polish, sometimes friction. In medieval Europe, access to Greek astronomy returned through translations from Arabic into Latin, especially in centers like Toledo in Spain. The sky did not reset. It continued. By the 15th century, universities taught Ptolemaic cosmology as inherited authority. Planetary tables guided navigation. Astrology intertwined with astronomy in courtly life. The heavens were practical, and yet dissatisfaction simmered. The equant still bothered some mathematicians. The layered epicycles felt increasingly cumbersome. The system worked, but it lacked elegance. And mathematicians crave elegance the way sailors crave a steady wind. It is easy to caricature the Middle Ages as stagnant. That caricature is lazy. What truly happened was slower, more disciplined. Manuscripts copied by candlelight. Tables recalculated. Instruments refined. Astrolabes, quadrants, armillary spheres. No thunder, just continuity. This matters, because revolutions in thought rarely erupt from ignorance. They emerge from accumulated tension within existing systems. By the time we approach the 16th century, astronomy is not primitive. It is sophisticated, numerically dense, technically capable. All it needs is someone willing to reconfigure its center. And when that happens, it will not be an act of rebellion for its own sake. It will be a mathematical decision. But before we step into that turning point, pause here. Across centuries of political upheaval, linguistic shifts, religious transformation, the sky remained a shared reference point. Different civilizations looked up. Different languages named the stars. But the geometry beneath them was continuous. The cosmos does not belong to one culture. It belongs to whoever is patient enough to measure it. In our final section, we will witness the moment when patience becomes disruption, when inherited certainty fractures, and the Earth begins to move not as hypothesis, but as conviction. And the universe will never feel small again. Revolutions in science rarely feel revolutionary at first. They feel like revisions. In the early 16th century, a quiet canon from Bork studied inherited tables, recalculated planetary positions, and grew dissatisfied. Not outraged, not theatrical, dissatisfied. His name was Nicholas Copernicus. For decades, he worked cautiously. He knew the authority of Claudius Ptolemy. He knew the weight of tradition. The geocentric model had endured not because it was foolish, but because it functioned. Yet the equant troubled him. The complexity of epicycles felt like scaffolding piled upon scaffolding. So he made a decision that was mathematical before it was philosophical. Put the sun at the center. In 1543, as he lay near death, his work was published, De Revolutionibus Orbium Coelestium, on the revolutions of the heavenly spheres. Its proposal was radical in consequence, but restrained in tone. Copernicus did not attack scripture. He did not mock predecessors. He presented geometry. In his model, the sun rests near the center. Earth rotates daily on its axis. Earth orbits the sun yearly. Retrograde motion becomes an illusion, a perspective effect as planets overtake one another. Suddenly, the loops vanish. No more planetary hesitation. No more backward wandering as a physical phenomenon. Just motion viewed from a moving platform. It was cleaner, not perfectly accurate. Copernicus still used circular orbits, still relied on epicycles, but conceptually transformative. And here is the deeper shift. Humanity was displaced. If Earth moves, then we are not the cosmic anchor. We are one planet among others. The sky does not revolve around us. We revolve. This was not merely astronomical. It was psychological. For centuries, the universe had been structured like a hierarchy. Earth at the center, heavens above, divine perfection outward. Now the center dissolved, but acceptance was slow. Copernicus' model predicted planetary positions roughly, as well as Ptolemy's. It did not yet outperform it dramatically. Without decisive observational superiority, many scholars treated heliocentrism as a mathematical convenience rather than physical truth. A hypothesis, an elegant calculation tool. Then came observation sharpened to unprecedented precision. Enter Tycho Brahe, meticulous, obsessive, recording planetary positions with instruments of extraordinary accuracy before the invention of the telescope. He rejected heliocentrism, but amassed data that would destabilize geocentrism more effectively than ideology ever could. And from Tycho's data emerged Johannes Kepler. Kepler did something Copernicus could not. He abandoned the circle. After years of calculation, frustration layered upon frustration, he discovered that Mars does not move in a perfect circle. It moves in an ellipse. With that, the heavens lost their ancient geometric perfection. Circular motion had been philosophically sacred since Aristotle. Ellipses were asymmetrical, imperfect, but they matched reality. Kepler's laws described planetary motion with mathematical clarity. Planets orbit in ellipses. They sweep equal areas in equal times. Their orbital periods relate predictably to their distance from the Sun. The system was no longer just elegant. It was accurate. Then, in 1610, a telescope turned toward the sky. Galileo Galilei observed mountains on the Moon, phases of Venus, moons orbiting Jupiter. The heavens were not perfect crystalline spheres. Venus exhibited phases consistent with orbiting the Sun. Jupiter possessed its own miniature system, proof that not everything revolved around Earth. The center could not hold. By the time Isaac Newton formulated universal gravitation in 1687, the architecture was complete. Gravity explained why planets moved as Kepler described. The same force that pulls an apple downward governs the Moon. The cosmos unified. Heaven and Earth obey the same law. That is perhaps the most profound shift of all. The sky is not divine mechanism separate from terrestrial matter. It is continuous with it. We are not beneath the heavens. We are within them. And so the long arc that began with Greek speculation, with Thales of Miletus predicting an eclipse, with Hipparchus mapping stars, reaches its transformation. The Earth moves. The planets obey gravity. The universe operates through mathematical law. What was once myth becomes model. What was once divine choreography becomes physics. But do not mistake this for disenchantment. If anything, the cosmos becomes more astonishing, because now we know it is comprehensible, and that realization, that the universe can be described, predicted, understood, is the inheritance of centuries. In our final section, we will step back from names and dates and ask a quieter question. What did all this movement do to us? When the Earth moved, what moved inside the human mind? When the Earth moved, nothing in our daily lives appeared to change. The sea still breathed against the shore. The sun still rose. The ground still felt solid beneath our feet. And yet something irreversible had happened. From Thales of Miletus standing beneath an eclipse, to Hipparchus mapping the stars, to Nicholas Copernicus shifting the center, to Isaac Newton binding heaven and earth with gravity. The arc is not just astronomical. It is psychological. For most of human history, the cosmos explained us. Storms reflected divine temper. Comets warned of upheaval. The sky was narrative. Greek thinkers did something radical. They asked not what the sky meant, but how it moved. That shift from meaning to mechanism did not strip the heavens of wonder. It redefined wonder. The night sky became a problem to solve. And in solving it, humanity discovered something unsettling and liberating at once. We are not central. We are not stationary. We are not the axis around which reality turns. But we are capable of understanding it. That is the trade. Lose centrality. Gain comprehension. The ancient Greeks could not have foreseen telescopes peering into galaxies, nor spacecraft leaving the solar system. They did not know of black holes or expanding space. Yet the intellectual posture they cultivated, observation disciplined by mathematics, made all of it possible. When Aristarchus of Samos imagined Earth in motion, he loosened certainty. When Claudius Ptolemy systematized the heavens, he demonstrated predictive power. When scholars in Baghdad refined inherited models, they proved knowledge is cumulative. When Kepler abandoned perfect circles, he chose reality over elegance. Each step required humility. Humility before evidence. Humility before mathematics. Humility before the possibility of being wrong. The greatest transformation was not heliocentrism. It was method. The realization that the universe is not deciphered by authority or intuition alone, but by patient testing, revision, recalculation. The sky shifted because human thinking shifted, and that shift continues. Today, we know the sun is one star among hundreds of billions in a galaxy that is itself one among trillions. The Earth is not just off-center, it is cosmically negligible in scale. And yet, on this negligible planet, matter organized itself into consciousness capable of modeling the entire observable universe. The cosmos is vast, but comprehension arises within it. That is extraordinary. When the Earth moved, humanity did not shrink. It expanded. We became participants in a dynamic universe rather than tenants of a fixed dome. The stars ceased to revolve around us, but they became accessible through equation and experiment. The machine recovered near Antikythera turned gears to predict eclipses. Modern instruments turn silicon and light to measure cosmic background radiation. Different materials, same impulse. To ask, how does it work? And perhaps more quietly, where are we within it? The story that began with sailors, philosophers, and bronze dials ends not with certainty, but with orientation. We stand on a rotating planet orbiting an ordinary star in a vast, expanding cosmos. We are not the center, but we are aware. And awareness, fragile, questioning, restless, may be the rarest phenomenon in the universe. So tonight, when you look up, let the sky feel different. Not as a ceiling, not as a theater of omens, but as a system, elegant, immense, governed by laws we continue to uncover. The Greeks began the long conversation between mind and cosmos. We are still answering, and the Earth is still moving.